Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of your favorite podcast and mine, the Deep Learning with PolyAI pod. I'm your host, Damien. I'm joined here with someone who is a very familiar face on the podcast, but not usually in the guest hot seat. Michelle Schroeder is the SVP of Marketing here at PolyAI. Hey, Michelle.
Hey, Damien. I'm glad to be back. Excited to be back on.
We missed you. I hope you feel at home in the studio here, as virtual as it may be. How have things been since we last chatted?
They've been great. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't seem like there's been much change in your background. There's been a little in mine, tiny.
Yeah, a little bit. The trusty guitar is still there, though. And I think the only change in my world is I've recently discovered lemon-flavored Oreos, which I didn't think I would like. They were bought by accident thinking they were vanilla Oreos, which our kids like. But they're not. They're lemon. I tried them, and now I think it's the default Oreo in the Smith household.
Okay, so, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Is the middle still cream?
Yeah, but it's a lemon cream. It's a lemon cookie with a lemon cream.
That sounds amazing.
It is, and I think it's because also I've been getting into like lemon coffee, like lemon iced coffee. I think it's starting to catch on here in the States.
It just feels like curdling to me. Like I'm concerned about the acid.
I guess it depends on it. I mean, I only drink that black because I have the same thing. Like a lemon meringue pie to me even still gives me the willies because you're like too much lemon and dairy. But no, it's definitely an intriguing thing. I didn't think I would like it. Then I had a cookie and I was like, I think I'm gonna have 2 more cookies. And now it's been my daily afternoon treat. Okay, lemon Oreos aside, I am thrilled to talk with you about this topic today because I know it's something that you and I are very passionate about. We obviously know that like the Nicholas of the world and a lot of the people here at PolyAI are very technically minded. They've got their doctorates in machine learning and dialogue design and the like, but you and I are kind of mindful people who look at the world around us and say, why is this so? And so I thought, what better topic for the two of us to chat about than automation in real life? And what I mean there is the physical manifestations of automation that we see in our day-to-day and what it has in common and why sometimes it's vastly different than the automation that we see in enterprise operations, and specifically what we do, which is that phone-based automation. I'm really curious to see why there is such a, like almost a polar opposite reaction from your everyday consumer when they bump into a robot that's cleaning the floors of their local grocery store and doing like, spotty and inventory scans versus picking up the phone and hearing an automated voice and having a higher expectation of functionality there. So I'd love to just talk with that in general. And maybe we could start with, is this like, what are some key examples of what you believe to be automation that has really like drawn attention to the fact that automation exists in real life?
Yeah. I mean, look, one thing I can say is that just from the moment that I joined about a year and a half ago to now, even the prospect conversation about, people who are now starting to embrace and think about bringing automation into their contact centers and automate their calls. In the beginning, it was like, well, what if we just do this tiny slice of calls where it's like low stakes, low risk, and I can protect basically the customer experience. And I can protect my brand reputation to right now where we just talked to a prospect a few days ago that said, well, in less than 5 years, I want to automate 95% of all of my calls. And this is a high-end, known brand. So anyway, just like getting that out of the way, it's just interesting that the appetite and sort of energy and like desire to embrace automation seems to have changed. Whereas I think in real life, like to actually answer your question, like I have not seen that many successful, fully automated experiences that have sort of like, passed the test, like the human experience test. And then also the longevity test. So like Amazon Go is probably the best example that I can think of. Yeah, which is that grocery store, which is now continued in a lot of spots where there was like no scanning, no paying. You walk in, the camera, this is the lore, not the reality, but the lore was that this camera was going to recognize you and it was going to map you back to your Amazon account and you were going to just grab things that it was going to watch and it was going to basically, like tally up your inventory, tally up that cost, and you were just going to be able to walk out and see your Amazon account be processed, for whatever that total was. The truth of it was that there were actual people.
So weird.
watching this video. But by the way, we have the same kind of thing even in our space where it's like real people that are doing a lot of automation. And like that was accepted for a really long time because it was still better than the alternative, which was people scanning groceries. They still felt like that low amount of interaction, human interaction, that the trade-off was basically that it was going to be faster. You walk in, you walk out. And it just feels very personalized. It feels very connected to your Amazon account and like, wow, it's all done for me. It's all easy. And Amazon's
So
whole
was
thing
it
is
was it the actual like concept of automation, or was it just the peoplelessness about it that either one was novel and exciting to the average consumer to go and like be a part of this? You know, you got influencers there that are like, oh look, I'm not paying anybody. There's nobody here. Is it the fact that there's just it's a humanless experience, whereas grocery shopping traditionally was always one of those things that you expected to check out with a human cashier?
yeah. I mean, I think it was a combination of things. Amazon. So I used to pass the Amazon Go on Park Avenue South in New York City every single day. And I would hardly ever see people in it. I went in there once and I, did the experience just to see what it was like. I think
Sure.
just like our early customers thinking, okay, I'm just going to automate the lowest risk things. Amazon Go did a very similar thing. I'm just going to, they thought we're just going to put the things that people are most likely to buy and just shortcut things for them so that go, the operative word being go, like you can just go in, go out, get the thing that you need, low friction, like fast time to value, basically.
Yeah.
But the problem is that gamble, that's just not, I think it wound up being too expensive for them, partially because it wasn't true automation. There wasn't really an efficiency play there. They still had real human beings, like everything and just all the bunch of fraud and shrinkage and all the, issues that, people tend to have. But it just wasn't a high enough value experience. And so that trade-off of the lack of kind of human interaction in favor of speed, but also not necessarily having access to all the things you want. And then for Amazon's ultimate decision to shut a lot of those locations down, I think probably had more to do with usage and like margins. Like they probably cost them too much for what they were making.
It is interesting. Plus, I think that they, especially in a metro like New York City, they probably took the most human experience, which is the bodega experience in New York City, and tried to automate it. It's like you're going to get nothing but pushback there. That makes a ton of sense. What about? I mean, obviously, the concept of automation has been around forever. You think of stuff that we don't see on the day to day, like car production or large vehicle production. It's still highly automated. It's human in the loop automation, but for the most part, it's very roboticized. And then a lot of the stuff that goes on sort of behind the scenes in manufacturing process and discrete. This has been happening for a while, but it's in that customer facing application, like Chippy the Chipotle robot, and a lot of quick service restaurants are bringing in and Flippy. There's Chippy and Flippy, right? Flippy's the one making hamburgers. Why did those seem really unnecessarily weird to the average consumer, knowing that there have been robots like this behind the scene for years that have been doing a lot of the dirty work?
Yeah. I mean, I think the further you get from like the expectation that you're going to have a human interaction, you're going to have a human experience, the more successful the automation is likely to be. So you think about an automated, vacuum robot, or you think about even an automated brain surgery where the patient is unconscious. They're not expecting like great bedside manner. They're expecting to have whatever issue, they have going on to be resolved when they wake up. So the idea that it's happening from, an automated like machine versus an actual human hand doesn't make as big of an impact. Whereas I think when you are really trying to abstract very closely from a human experience, the expectation is that it's going to be a human experience, that there's going to be a human on the other end of it. And I was just actually thinking about this with social media, like, especially after COVID, people went on TikTok, they went on Instagram, they went on social media to have a human experience. So even if you said absolutely everything that you see, which is not the case, it's not what I'm saying, but if everything that you saw on your TikTok, like For You page was automated and you knew they were just extremely convincing robots, it would feel wrong. You wouldn't walk away, I don't think, somebody should do a study on this, but I don't think you'd walk away with the same sort of like, with your social meter filled in any way. And it turns out your social media is, your social media meter Your social
Your social media meter, say it 10 times.
is not very much raised by social media anyway. A lot of people
Right.
post social media exposure, but the same thing is probably true on a phone, is probably true on a chat, is probably true on anything that's meant to feel like a human experience, and is borrowing from that human experience. So my whole take on this is that it's very likely in the future that the modality by which you're receiving support, for example, or you're experiencing an automated call will be expected. It will not be expected to be human experience. So once that transition happens, you don't get that uncanny valley. You don't get that discomfort. You don't get that, that sort of missed expectation anymore.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Although there is a pretty pervasive social theory that 90% of all the content on the internet is made by bots at this stage anyway, which is, obviously has roots in propagation on platforms like X Twitter, even if X Twitter is the one that's paying the price for it. So it's not to say that I'm not saying we should buy into the conspiracy theories, but it's not entirely implausible that a vast majority of content out there or suspected human interaction is actually automated. On the converse, platforms of the virtual girlfriend, virtual boyfriend, creating a persona and getting into a parasocial relationship are on the rise. And maybe playing into your theory, and also I agree with it, maybe that's because you're going in expecting a highly human-like experience, but from an automated platform, as opposed to going in expecting to be interacting with the human and having a human experience and having that being somewhat simulated, but still artificial enough for you to fall in that uncanny valley.
Yeah. And I think, not to keep bringing it back to what we do, but it's just very relevant.
Well, it is the PolyAI podcast.
It is,
you know what you signed up for.
That's true. That is true. But yeah, when you tell people that they're speaking to a bot, and we've done these studies with our own clients, they do interact differently. They shorten their sentences.
Sure.
They get faster to the point, for better or for worse. And they don't inject these little bits of sort of like normal everyday interaction, like "thank you so much" or "no, that's all, have a great day." Those types of things. But their CSAT, like the experience, the satisfaction that they have in that experience with the bot, doesn't tend to be as high if they've even given a review. Whereas like you and I, if we're having a customer service conversation and the person says, "Can you please stay on after to take a short survey about your experience?" If you've had a good experience, you want to reward that person with 5, right? Or like whatever it is. You want to reward that person because you know that they're being judged on that. Whereas a bot, they might not even participate or want to thank it. But if you walk in with that expectation, like you would with a parasocial relationship with a chatbot, of this is a chatbot, and even though I'm holding a human experience standard to it, I know that it's a chatbot. You kind of know
it's still performance. You're still in a performance mindset. Like, did this chatbot perform better than I thought it would? Yeah, it certainly did.
Exactly. Yeah. And am I less lonely at the end of it?
I was able to process the return of my new kicks, and I made a friend. Yeah. And I think that's what's most important overall.
Always what's most important.
So let's talk more about like societal expectation on moving towards automation. And I do agree. I think that we're on the forefront of the big transition from when you pick up the phone and you make a call to a brand. Normally it's, I'm going to wait forever, but eventually talk to a human. And now it's, I'm going to talk to a very human-like automated solution that will solve my problem more often than it won't. And that makes me very happy. So as that transition occurs, what do you think are sort of similar arcs for those IRL automations? So the stuff that we're seeing that is still causing people, the googly-eyed cleaning bots in grocery stores, the Amazon Goes, the Flippies and Chippies. What do you see as far as the, corporeal automation that's really going to probably strike gold next?
Yes. I mean, the corporeal piece, I think, is really critical. So like it needs to feel, whatever that IRL kind of automation is, it needs to feel like the thing that it's delivering. It needs to evoke that in the person. It still needs to be an experience that makes people feel something. And so I was just thinking about this. It's another Park Avenue South place. It's a restaurant called Colonel. Not far from where the Amazon Go was, but it's the former CEO of
Robot Alley, I believe is what they call it now.
Yeah. but yeah, so this is a restaurant that they automated out most of the people in the loop entirely. So the people who cook the food, the people who serve the food, the way in which you order, and if you pass it and you look in, you would have no idea that they serve food. And so when I think about like the things that sort of make a restaurant appetizing, like literally appetizing, but also like figuratively, do I want to go in here? Do I want to have an experience here? They seem to be missing that. And so when you think about the transition to more of these, like more of an embrace of automated experiences, it still needs to feel like the thing that it's related to. So I think that this restaurant that I'm thinking of, I I have a hard time imagining that it's successful right now because I again, just like the Amazon Go, I never see people going into it. It doesn't feel very inviting. It doesn't feel like food. It doesn't feel like a place I go when I'm hungry. It feels like a place that I'd go to get like, I don't know, like my boxes automatically packaged for. So
Do you think it still has that entertainment mystique though? In this, like, people who are wondering, could this be the next wave of, food prep and quick service restaurant deliver or quick service restaurant models is going to be, for a while it was ghost kitchens, right? And I still think it's pervasive
yeah,
because of so many door to door delivery services. So places that don't have a physical location, but they have a celebrity influencer sponsor and a bunch of kind of garbage food in a non-physical place, but it still somehow hits your belly. Is
yeah.
this gonna be the next thing that has a little bit of intrigue and
Well,
but not a lot of, like, market stickiness?
I think you nailed it. Like if they want to embrace the fact that it's a large abstraction away from a human-run restaurant. They need to embrace the performance of it. They need to embrace sort of like the circus element, which is like I want to see the automation done. I want to see the flippy and the chippy, like all the things that are that are doing the jobs that I'm expecting a human to see. And I want it to be fun. And I at least at this stage that we're in. Um, I think it's going to need that element of like more than mystique. It's going to have something that sort of winks at the fact that this is automation of a normally human experience until we're ready to embrace it everywhere. On the phone, I think the analog is like sounding human, pausing at the right spots, inflected, having like human inflections and empathy and all the things that like we know is important to our clients. Like I think that restaurants are going to need to embrace the same kind of thing. Whereas passport control, horrible experience for everyone. The more you automate that, the better. Like, great. If I never have to stop and get asked why I was traveling and, like, what do you do for work? And then feel like I'm lying and be like, you know what? Forget it. I, I'm going to turn back around. Um, but like those types of things where the human experience, either isn't great or isn't the expectation. It's not the thing that, is at the core of that
Yeah.
experience. I, I think that that's completely fine.
Or even it also could be highly flawed in kind of high stakes environments. Like, obviously brain surgeon bots aren't gonna be the norm until they're near flawless, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of stakes that are there. Chippy burns a batch of chips, no big deal. You make another batch of chips, but, Clippy or whatever, Brainy, if they're in there and they scoop out the wrong stuff, then, there's some massive implications
Yeah.
there. So maybe there is the level of stakes. And so that's why those sort of novels, or novel applications of automation in real life are they have that level of novelty to them, because
Yeah.
really there's no harm, no foul in giving them a shot.
Exactly. Exactly. I think you either need the novelty or it needs to be so good that nobody noticed. Almost like a transatlantic flight or a flight across the country. Like most of it is automated. A
Right.
vast majority of it is automated. And actually there's a decent percentage of brain surgeries that are performed by automated bots. They are good enough that it's not the story, it's not the focal point. And just like the patient sort of being unconscious, like
Yeah.
I'm not in the cockpit of the plane. I
What
know
you do like seeing when you get off the plane, though, you do like seeing the pilots and go
human
like,
beings.
"Hope you enjoyed your flight, even though I didn't do anything for all of it, but I was here." So maybe the same thing as you go under for brain surgery, you see the human surgeon like
Totally.
sharpening scalpels or whatever, but then when you're under, something else is taking care of
Yeah,
the business.
that's very true.
That makes a ton of sense. So going back, and talking a little bit more about that, we could call it progression. I'm sure there are people out there that'll call it a digression, but let's just call it a transition towards having greater expectations for automated support and solutions. Um, I mean, the payoffs are obvious, right? When we talk about something like this, like phone-based support, theoretically, we could do away with hold times forever, right? We have our little hold times are for the old times. We like rocking those T-shirts and everything. And theoretically, that's very plausible. Imagine never having to wait on hold again. It's a beautiful thing. But even with those positives, there's still a little bit of like societal hesitation towards widespread adoption. What do you think is the chief thing there? Knowing the benefits, but still like clinging to that maybe humanity of times gone by. How like, what does it take? Does it just take one really good call with a automated voice assistant to say, "Oh, wait, what was I thinking? That's so ridiculous to think I needed to talk to a person."
I don't think so. I think you're asking a very interesting, like almost political question, which is like, the value of conservatism, like where that comes from, like why people want to sort of conserve older models of the world and how we experience things. There's some of that I think at play. That we believe that because this is how it was done, that's the right way, and that even if the experience is worse, you would rather kind of have a human on the other side of that call. We all know people like that who are just like, I hate automated calls no matter what. That said, that there's also like the reality element, which is that most automation up until, the last probably 2 years has been really bad, especially in the United
Yeah.
States. So like there's just this disbelief that automated calls or an automated like system is going to be anywhere near or on par with a human. So like that belief, I think, hurts a lot of things. But once you do have good experiences, once you do realize like, well, I wasn't on hold at all and I got access to the answer, I got the thing that I needed. The only thing that's left really to cling to is that feeling that, I mean, I guess that feeling that you missed out on a human experience. And I don't think that that's going to like be pervasive. I don't think that's going to be here in 5 years. I think people are going to expect that certain things are just automated and that calls have to do with, are part of that, modality, and that the human voice is just that much more intuitive than
Right.
typing or trying to find the answer on your own. And because of those things, I do think that's going to be the expected modality. And then anybody who's still like hanging on to the past, I think that's going to be a psychology question.
But and then also to that, looking at the instances in which successful automated interactions in high stress environments probably expedite that cultural shift a little bit, right? Think about it, like if you're filing an insurance claim, you get into a car accident or something like that, and the concept of waiting for an adjuster to come by and inspect the scene, and then waiting for the car part to come in, and sometimes your car will be in the shop for like 6 weeks waiting for a specific part or whatever. But then the first time that you do something where you take a picture and submit it, and it's automatically assessed by, visually driven AI, and they give you a quote on reparations, and also like send your file over to a local shop that's pretty technologically progressive, that instantly orders the part that you need, and assesses through a series of distributors like who has the part in quickest time. And then all of a sudden that headache that used to last 2 months goes down to a week, maybe, and you've got money in hand and a working car. That high stress situation, if automation like works well in that use case, then all of a sudden you've got a champion for life. And it's not to the extent, but when someone's calling in because they have an issue and they need some customer service or support, that is an ideal chance to capitalize on a lightly stressful situation and really remediate all those headaches that usually accompany it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think on the flip side, because of those high stakes things too, if they don't go well, it has the potential to do a lot more damage. But generally speaking, like we're at a place where those high stakes experiences can be automated, and they can be automated well. And it's going to be a matter of spreading the word, basically, getting people to experience it and feel that firsthand to lower the resistance, I think, to automation. Whereas, like ordering a burger, very, very low stakes. And yet still, you don't see a whole lot of people choosing to do that when they are given the choice.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm curious, and I'm also curious as to how many Ippy robots can really pop up. If they've got Flippy and Chippy, how many others are there? The guacamole maker called Dippy, perhaps Sippy?
Yeah, for boba and soda.
I love it. All right, I think we got a business. If you need your bot named with an Ippy rhyme, please contact either myself or Michelle. We'll do one-off project consulting. Hey, it's been awesome talking to you, Michelle. As always, I think this is a fascinating topic. I think we should do a part 2 of this in, let's say, 3 years' time and see how much has changed if Clippies have overtaken us. But for now, that brings us to the end of the show. So I really appreciate
Awesome.
having you back on. It was great to chat.
Super fun to talk. See you, Damien.
All right, we'll see you all next time.